Hi everyone, Caoimhin here from MTU's Blackrock Castle Observatory. Over the past couple of videos we've been moving along the sky from the west to the east, taking note of some famous constellations, and this week we took a closer look at Orion and Leo, both of which are particularly useful for measuring the degree of light pollution in your area if you're using the Globe at Night citizen science campaign to help contribute data about the amount of light pollution you receive. We're going to be taking another deeper look at Leo in this video, as well as moving along to Virgo and taking a look at some of the other constellations that are along the ecliptic, which we've mentioned in the past couple of videos. But to start with, we're just here as the sun is setting. It's coming up to 7 o'clock on Friday the 5th. We'll go a little bit closer to 7 just to get things a little bit darker. We can already see the brightest star Sirius, the constellation of Orion in the south, and then Aldebaran, the red star, and a little bit higher Mars, the red planet. So they're all going to be up nice and early. They're nice bright objects, so we can see them really as soon as the sun goes down over the next couple of days. If we keep turning around to the east, so we're moving from Taurus and Aldebaran through Gemini with Pollux and Castor, coming down to the eastern horizon, there is still a reasonable amount of glow here. The sun has just set now at 7 o'clock, but already we can start to see some of the brighter stars in the constellation of Leo. And if we keep pushing up closer to about 7:30, Leo becomes nice and clear, very, very visible just above the eastern horizon. So the constellation of Virgo is down almost in the northeast at the moment, but it will be coming up close to the east once it gets above the horizon a little bit later. And the reason we're taking a look at these constellations, especially in a longer video, is because they've got some very interesting objects deeper inside of them that we'll need a telescope to observe. There is still, if anything, a little bit of an orange-yellow glow, so we are going to push later. We'll get closer to about 8 o'clock, a little after 8 o'clock. Not only will that make sure that the sky is nice and dark, but that means some of the upper part of the constellation of Virgo, and it is a very big constellation, will be just starting to come above the horizon over here. So we'll turn back around to the south. We'll bring up that line of the ecliptic and the lines of the constellations before we take a look at the drawing, the more artistic version of the constellations, to get a better idea of where Virgo is. So we can see Mars there with Taurus. The line comes down through Gemini, through the bottom of Leo. So we're looking very low down here to the eastern horizon for Virgo. And the constellation of Virgo, just like the constellation of Leo here, really only its edge is on the ecliptic. Virgo is a little bit above the ecliptic, sort of north of the ecliptic in the sky. So there will be a portion of it popping up here. If we bring up the lines of the constellations, that's it. That's the top portion of Virgo that's sticking up over the horizon. It is just the very top of the constellation, so the later we wait, the more Virgo we see, and of course the later we get, the higher in the sky this constellation of Virgo gets. So if you're here at about 8 o'clock, if you want to start your stargazing or start using a telescope once it gets dark enough, it's better to start by taking a deeper look into the constellation of Leo and waiting for Virgo to get a little bit higher above the horizon, so you're not looking through quite as much atmosphere. There's that constellation of Cancer that again we're pretty much skipping. It's very, very hard to see, especially in the city in between Gemini and Leo, which have some much brighter stars involved. So again, this is what they would look like if you were in the city, and we're going to especially focus on Leo here as I go through some of the differences. So the moon is not going to be interfering too much, and it'll be interfering less and less over the next couple of days as it comes around next to the sun. So the only light that's going to affect your view here of the constellation Leo is the amount of light pollution that's around you. So taking a look here, and we're already zoomed in a little bit compared to what we'd see with our eyes, we can see the body of Leo is this sort of almost rectangular shape here. And just taking a look, we can see the corners of it, but there's really only one star there that appears to be sort of inside that rectangular area. So as we push out to the countryside, I'll get this nice and small and pushed over to the side so that we can really see here with Leo how many extra stars we're getting as the light pollution goes down. So even just dropping a little bit, there's the asteroid Vesta. It's out in the asteroid belt. So again, something you really need binoculars for, but it is out in that direction. Those stars are becoming a little bit brighter, but we're not seeing too many more as of yet. We'll have to push a little further out. Now we're definitely starting to see more faint stars in that rectangle rectangular shape, and as the light pollution gets darker, then, they'll come out in groups. The fainter stars, and then the next faintest set of stars, we're starting to get a few more even fainter ones becoming visible here. And in the deepest, darkest depths of the countryside, there's definitely quite a few stars that are visible inside the shape of Leo. And having that sort of boundary made by the lines of the constellation, it gives you a much easier to focus on area. You can really count up exactly how many stars you're seeing, and that makes it nice and easy to compare when we get to somewhere like Cork that has all of that extra light pollution, where those other stars wouldn't be visible. So Leo and Orion, they've both been used recently by the globe at night for measuring the amount of light pollution in your sky, but the constellation of Leo will continue to be used into April. So if you're focusing on where Leo is, you'll have a slightly better you'll have a slightly longer time to contribute to the globe at night, because you'll be able to keep doing it into April using the same constellation for the same measurements, just counting how many stars we're looking at. Now, if we bring up our marking for deep sky objects, those things that are far beyond our solar system, out in our galaxy, or even beyond our galaxy, we can see there's a couple after popping up already. For most deep sky objects, you really need to start taking a closer look to begin noticing them. And as we take a closer look into Leo here, we're starting to see a couple down here underneath Leo and around the tail of Leo. So these shapes, in particular, these are other galaxies. And, in the city, they're going to be tough to see unless you have a very powerful telescope. We can start to see the sort of fuzzy shape of a couple of the galaxies down there. And a couple of those fuzzy dots, some of them are fainter stars, some of them are distant galaxies, and it can be hard to tell. If we push back out into the countryside, things will get just a little bit easier, and more of these will be a little bit more obvious. They'll stand out a little bit more clearly, so we can see there's some inside of Leo there as well. Now Leo, and even more so Virgo, they're great directions to look at if you're looking to see some things that are outside of our galaxy, and this goes back to one of our earlier videos. If we come over here, we can see the line of the Milky Way, and we can see that the bottom of Gemini, the top of Orion, they're very much in front of this glow of the Milky Way. So we see a lot of these deep sky objects here, whereas Aldebaran is pushed out a little bit, and the constellation of Taurus. So we don't see as many of the deep sky objects when we zoom in and take a closer look. When we're looking out in the direction of Leo, there's none of this glow of the Milky Way to sort of get in our way. So we're not looking at deep sky objects that are further out in our galaxy, but we're actually looking at other galaxies that are much, much further outside the Milky Way. They're millions of light years, sometimes billions of light years away from us. We can see that there's a few small ones there in the tail of Leo. And when you take a closer look, some of these galaxies, well, they're beautiful things to look at, because these are more globular kind of galaxies. If we take a look down here, there's a more spiral galaxy with these very clearly defined arms, and those galaxies can be some of the prettiest to look at. They're some of the best to get photographs of, because they have that very clear, recognizable, galaxy shape. And because there's so many of them in this, reasonably small area of our sky, you can see the spiral shape of some. Others presented more at a side angle, so you get to see the dark clouds of dust that are around the edges of the arms of these galaxies. Virgo is an even more productive area of the sky to look in, and specifically really this area just above or around the top and head of Virgo. Looking into this area is where we see the Virgo Galaxy, and this is the Virgo cluster of galaxies. So there are a lot of galaxies in this area. So the Milky Way and the Andromeda Galaxy, we form our own little local group, but in a larger structure, looking at a big supercluster of galaxies, we would be, part of the same supercluster as all of these, part of the Virgo supercluster. So this is a very, very productive area of the sky in which to take a closer look. You can see there's lots and lots of galaxies, and we will be taking a closer look at Virgo as we push forward in the month, and as Virgo gets higher into our sky each and every evening. So I hope you'll join me in future videos when we take an even closer look at some of those interesting objects that lie along the ecliptic.